Ryuga Gotoku Studios has been exceptionally busy as of late. Yakuza 6, The Song of Life, and Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise were both released in 2018. Now, the studio's Yakuza spin-off title Judgment has arrived in the West as well, hitting store shelves on the 25th of June 2019. But how does Judgment stack up to the main series? Let's find out. This review and the related footage is based on a physical retail copy of the game for the PlayStation 4. Judgment's story takes place in 2018, 2 years after the events of Yakuza 6. Aside from the occasional cameo, the narrative features an entirely new cast, and there's no prerequisite information necessary to follow Judgment's plot. This stark separation from the main series is actually to Judgment's benefit, as the story is much easier to follow. You play as Takayuki Yagami, a former lawyer turned private detective out to clean up the mean streets of Kamurocho. Along the way, Yagami gets embroiled in a heated conflict that's rife with twists and turns at every step, putting him both alongside and at odds with the gangsters that own the city in all but name. In the same spirit, Judgment is essentially Yakuza in all but name. The story is a brilliantly crafted Japanese crime drama, and the familiar backdrop is excellently utilized throughout its 40-plus hour runtime. Even though Judgment follows a new set of characters, the setting has remained relatively static in the 2 years that have passed in universe. The district of Kamurocho is almost identical. The storefronts and buildings are all basically identical. There's even minor continuity, like how in Yakuza 6, Kazuma helped the Nyan Nyan Cat Cafe find all its cats, and in Judgment the cats are already there, still enjoying the cafe life. These small touches can be found throughout the city, and really bring the world to life for veteran Yakuza fans. However, even though these little tidbits may be lost on newcomers, Kamurocho is still fascinating and teeming with life. Like main series titles, Judgment's Kamurocho is dense, both in actual size and in available content. The story is already rich and meaty enough, but aside from that, there's a plethora of things to experience. Want to play arcade games? Check out Fighting Vipers, or the in-universe version of House of the Dead called Kamuro of the Dead. Want to win some prizes? There's the Gashapon and claw machines, with prizes you can actually use to decorate Yagami's detective office. There's even non-arcade games, like VR drone racing and various games of darts. These distractions are as great as ever, and help keep the story's pacing as brisk or as deliberate as the player wants. Aside from being enjoyable in and of itself though, the additional recreation also aids in making the world of Kamurocho feel vibrant and alive. Again, veteran Yakuza players know what to expect here, but newcomers are sure to love the sheer breadth of the environment and included content as well. Combat gameplay is essentially the same as the Yakuza series. The fighting system features normal strikes, heavy strikes, a grapple mechanic, and various special attacks known as EX moves. The numerous unique combos available to the player encourage experimentation, making combat both visceral and engaging. Contrary to Yakuza protagonist Kazuma Kiryu's overwhelming power, Judgment protagonist Yagami's strengths lie in his speed and agility. Jumping off of walls and vaulting over enemies keeps battles fast-paced, and you can even freely change between two different fighting styles with the push of a button. Crane style is highlighted in blue hues, and is much more effective at taking down large groups of enemies. Tiger style is highlighted in red hues, and is primarily for defeating individual enemies. That's not to say you can't take down a single enemy with Crane style and a group of enemies with Tiger style, rather those styles are specially designed for those kinds of fights. The dichotomy of the two styles shines most during boss battles. Taking down the fodder with Crane style, then pummeling the boss with Tiger style before switching back into Crane style to continue smashing low-tier enemies is just plain fun. However, Yagami's lesser physical prowess compared to Kazuma Kiryu comes at a price. Any well-armed or extremely powerful foe can inflict a mortal wound, which will shatter pieces of Yagami's health meter. Mortal wounds cannot be healed through normal means, and must be treated with either a visit to the doctor or by using costly medical kits. In order to avoid mortal wounds, players will find themselves relying not only on basic blocking, but on dodging and vaulting as well. Again, this is all designed to accent Yagami's quicker fighting tempo, and the way everything fits together makes for an overall enjoyable experience. As you progress through the game, you'll earn SP, which can be spent to increase stats, learn new combat techniques, and activate special abilities. This single special currency system is much more streamlined than the multiple point archetype system seen in Yakuza 6, making for a much simpler and more refined leveling process. Since you don't have to manage various different types of skill points, you're free to acquire any new skills that are available to you. Some skills are combat-based, others are social-based, and there's even skills primarily focused on the new mission types. This is a much easier system to manage, though some may decry the reduced number of skill options compared to Yakuza 6. At the very least, it's a lateral move, trading in some smaller, more superfluous abilities in exchange for a more relevant setup overall. New to the gameplay are various new mission types that attempt to change up the tried and true Yakuza formula. Unfortunately, many of these new missions feel more like distractions than anything else. The trailing missions are just like the trailing missions in Assassin's Creed. Follow somebody that occasionally turns around to see if they're being followed, at which point you'll hide behind some nearby object or structure. If you didn't like trailing missions before, you won't start liking them now. There are the first-person missions that have you search for clues a la L.A. Noire, chase missions where you run after a fleeing target, and photo missions where you have to take pictures of targets during scandalous or otherwise damning acts. The dialogue option minigame in particular is pretty neat if shallow in nature. During certain missions, you're presented with multiple possible dialogue options, and consecutively choosing the most relevant options yields bonus SP. None of these activities are bad per se, some are pretty interesting, and the rest certainly don't detract from the game. You can definitely tell that the studio was experimenting with these new missions, seeing what works and what doesn't alongside the core gameplay. But individually, they can feel like busy work, pulling you away from the consistent and proven mechanics. The saving grace for these missions is how they carry the detective motif into the forefront and help to distinguish Judgment from the core Yakuza series. Finding clues and asking questions may not be overly interesting in and of itself, but getting answers that help you combine clues with relevant photo evidence can be satisfying. It's still very shallow overall, but there's something to all of it, the early trappings of deeper, more engaging gameplay. Personally, I'd like to see these things explored further in future titles. As it stands, however, most of these new mission types are simply there, not really adding anything nor taking anything away from the punching and kicking in Space Harrier. Overall, Judgment's gameplay has a lot of variety to run in tandem with its exceptionally dense environment. Combat is as satisfying as ever, and while the additive gameplay isn't spectacular, it's different. Some players will like it, some won't, and ultimately, no matter how you feel about the periphery gameplay, you can still hit a guy with a front flip DDT, and that's pretty cool. The visuals are the weakest aspect of the game. On the PlayStation 4 Pro, Judgment has improved visual fidelity and a more consistent frame rate, but lacks any Pro-specific features such as 4K or higher FPS. Standard model PlayStation 4 systems will obviously run the game with lower specifications, particularly with the frame rate, which will dip during hectic action sequences. Still, the game's visuals are very good, regardless of which system you have, and the frame drops aren't game-breaking more so than distracting. Main character models are richly detailed, the animations look great for the most part, and overall, the polygon count is higher than previous Yakuza games. NPC character models and general facial animations are lacking, but they're not bad by any means. In addition, facial animations during cutscenes are fantastic, and lighting effects overall are more advanced than ever with the inclusion of ambient illumination combined with better shadow effects and textures. While there are a lot of better looking games out there, Judgment still looks and runs fine for the most part. I recommend running the game in boost mode on the PS4 Pro though for the steadier frame rate. The audio, on the other hand, is phenomenal. During gameplay, diegetic sound rules over sweeping scores. The city settling around you, the muffled conversations of NPCs, and the distant sirens and vehicles throughout the rest of fictional Tokyo bring the Kamurocho district to life. There is a soundtrack, of course. Combat has its accompanying rhythm, there's a vinyl record player in Yagami's detective office, and cutscenes are scored as well. The soundtrack runs the gamut of genres, from typical Hollywood-style scores to synth-heavy techno to bassy rock music. One of my favorite songs on the soundtrack is Darkness, which combines the various different music styles present throughout the game. In general, the music is really good, enhancing the richness of the story and action while also never overstaying its welcome, allowing the natural ambiance to take over when applicable. Additionally, the voice acting is one of the strongest aspects of the entire game. English and Japanese language options are present, and both are very good. I personally chose Japanese because the story is set in Japan. However, the English dub is exceptional. Not only is the actual spoken word very well performed, but the translation is spectacular. Regional colloquialisms have been taken into account, and there are minor differences between the English and Japanese scripts. In order to demonstrate these differences and why they're great, here's a snippet of Judgment's opening scene in both languages.
ああ、うちの八神をですか。いやー、大変恐縮なんですが、彼は先々まで手一杯でしてね。
はあ、いつまで続くんだろうな、この八神人気はよ。なあ、沙織ちゃん。
源田法律事務所です。ええ、八神は弊社の所属弁護士です。
Oh, you must be talking about Yagami. Absolutely. We appreciate any interest you might have. But it's just,
Wow. You know, must be so nice to be a rock star. Right, Celery-chan?
Gendala, Saori speaking. Yes, Yagami is currently employed by our firm.
Both scripts convey the same idea, but the differences in translation help accentuate character traits and narrative beats for native speakers. To fully understand the scope of why this extensive translation work is incredible, here's a snippet of a scene from the beginning of Yakuza 1 on PlayStation 2.
Sorry I'm late. I'm Kazuma, an associate of the Dojima family.
I didn't expect you to come, Kazuma-san.
When you don't pay your debts, I'm what you get.
Tomorrow! I'll have the money by tomorrow. Please don't kill me.
Huh?
It's campy and quirky and loses a lot more of the underlying drama when compared to Judgment's more well-designed dialogues. We've certainly come a long way. As a whole, Judgment's audio is amazing, and players are sure to enjoy the blending of musical genres, the engrossing urban environment, and the voice acting in whichever language they select. With a $60 entry fee, Judgment is a mixed bag. The core gameplay is fantastic, the story is just as great, and the audio is phenomenal. However, the graphical fidelity and new gameplay features might come across as underwhelming or disappointing. For anybody on the fence about the game, the latter reasons might make it worth waiting for a sale at $40 or $50. For people who have always wanted to try the Yakuza games but found the 7 existing entries too intimidating, Judgment is a great launching point into the series. And for Yakuza fans like myself, let's be honest, you probably already own the game and you really like it. While Judgment isn't the best game in the series, it's a really good spin-off with a lot of potential. Personally, I hope it sells well enough to get a sequel and realize that potential. Judgment earns an 8 out of 10. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends, and check out my other reviews annotated on screen. Thanks for watching.